When I was 24, I bought my first house. How many young people today do you think could have that opportunity? It was a 3-bedroom terrace in a very good area. And I was on my own. I wasn't sharing the cost with anyone. I got it by myself. So what's changed? Now, I'm no economist. I don't have all the answers. But what I do know is things have changed. Things are different. They're not like they used to be. If, like me, you started from scratch with just about nothing, no financial help, no way to get you started, did everything off your own bat, you'll have an idea of how hard it is to get onto the property ladder and get started. Well, just imagine what it's like today for those people. They've got no chance. Young people have got almost zero chance of owning their own property and having a bit of financial security in future. So what on earth is going on? I'll just give you my story, a bit of background, and maybe you can draw some comparisons to how it was then to how it is now. This is dry stone wall country. I'm practically in my second home in a way. It's quite ironic talking about houses and my lack of property and everything else right now and my difficult situation. However, it's kind of a second home. It's a bit of a long story. I don't own anything up here. This is Yorkshire. And look, this is what you get. Yorkshire stone everywhere, houses, properties up there on the side, on the steep hills, rolling fields, of course. And these things, the famous dry stone walls everywhere. There's some more being built. This is a little video all about property and what happens. Can you get on the ladder? Can you not get on the ladder? What was it like about 25, 30 years ago compared to what it's like now, and the pros and cons of maybe owning property and renting. I know which one I prefer, but maybe I was just a little bit lucky at that time compared to what people have got to look forward to these days. I'm no economist. I struggle a bit to see the big picture of what's going on, especially in the political world in this country. But I do have a pretty good idea when things are not going right. And what I can do is, I can draw a comparison to how it was and how it is now. I found a little walkway. This is handy. Gets me off that road. Oh, look at this. This is my view for this walk and talk. That's not bad, is it? At some point a few years ago, I had a bit of a realization. And I realized that myself and my partner at the time, we didn't have any financial backing. It was just us. We both come from poor backgrounds. You know, our parents got by, but that was about it. They had to scrimp and save. There wasn't any spare cash. We had the occasional UK holiday and things like that. It's just how it is. You know, but as I moved around, met different people, and got to understand their circumstances a bit, I saw people my sort of age who were buying properties, getting flats, getting houses, and in what seemed like a fairly short space of time were sorted. Either they got good partners in good situations, or they somehow managed to get these properties and get them paid for in a short space of time. And I was puzzled as to how that happened. And then at some point, somebody let slip that, yeah, their parents lent them a chunk of money. And it got me thinking, how many of my friends and how many of people that I know had a helping hand in all of this? They got handouts and free, interest-free loans from family members and parents perhaps to get them on the ladder. Maybe a 50k, 25 or 100k or something towards the deposit, a handout towards their flat or their home. Or maybe their partner was very wealthy or their parents had money, I don't know. But then I took a look at me and thought, both me and my partner had next to nothing. We had our own backing We had to back ourselves, and that was it. We struggled and worked every day to get what we had. And others just get it as a nice handout. And I realized that people generally don't talk about that, do they? Nobody's going to say to their friends or anybody else that they had a nice big hand-me-down from someone else in the family. It doesn't look good. Probably doesn't sound good. So people don't talk about that. Of course, this is not meant to sound bitter or jealous or anything. It's just the luck of the draw. It's just how it works out for some. And I guess I just wasn't that lucky. Although, you know, as I keep saying, I'm not in a terrible place. However, every single thing that I have, every little bit of it, is through my own hard work, which makes me proud in a way. I'm very pleased with that. I've never had to say, yeah, I got a nice 50k handout or 100k handout from my parents who remortgaged their property or just had it sitting around. I've got it. I did it all. But it does mean I've got no backup. This is it. So think about it. That was going back a while when things were somewhat affordable. I, as a single man, 24 years old, could buy a 3-bedroom terrace property on his own with no help. It was unbelievable. Just try and imagine that today. What chance have people got today of doing something similar? The only chance they've got is if there is money in the family, is if parents have got some money that they can give to their kids to get them on that ladder. And they would probably need even more money to get them there in the first place. Otherwise, what are the alternatives? Those people are going to be renting. And probably a lot of us have rented in our lives. Most of us, I would say, would have a goal to end up owning something at the end of the day. And these days, trying to do that must be that much harder. You're going to be in a perpetual cycle of renting, round and round and round, indefinitely. Whether you rent one place and the landlord keeps putting the rent up, or whether you move and move and move, and probably you end up paying similar and maybe more rents as time goes on. The big downside of that I can see is, yes, it may be affordable at times, depending on where you live, where you rent, but there's no light at the end of that tunnel. That is it. You are renting forever. It doesn't suddenly come to an end like a mortgage that gets paid for and is done. It keeps going. You rent, you rent, you rent. Mortgages, generally, a repayment mortgage will have some sort of end date. It will finish. It will have an end point that you can aim for, some light at the end of the tunnel to look forward to. Overpay, do whatever you need to do, like keep chipping into it, something, and you will find a way out. And I can only see that is going to get worse. I'll give you my example of renting. It was in London. One of the examples. And not all landlords are bad, okay? Let me say that first of all. But you're probably not going to have one landlord all of your life. The chances are you're going to move a few times. You might have some good ones, some bad ones. Yeah, it's a real gamble, that, which is another reason why it's kind of risky, isn't it? The landlord I had for a while was great. And then something changed in his circumstances. Not my circumstances, his. His life was changing, his partner, whatever, something was going on back there. And he decided that he wanted the house back. So, at the time that suited him, he came and met with us and put the rent up. He had already decided things were going to change. The rent was going up by an extortionate amount. It was insane. We had no say in the matter. We tried to negotiate, we tried to get help. Nothing. His mind was made up. So the rent went up by something like ridiculous, like 50%. It was impossible. So think about this. You're living your life, getting on, you've been settled there for 8 or 10 years almost, a long time in this case. Everything's going great, and suddenly the rug gets pulled from underneath you. Your rent almost doubling. It's going up by several £100s a month. You simply can't afford it anymore. That's it. At a time that suits him and not you, you have to up sticks and move. Man, that was a terrible time. That really taught me a lesson. And it taught me the lesson that I don't want to be renting anymore in my life. So I decided to do something about it. Just as a little bit of background, in 1994, I was 24 years old. I bought my first house for about double my salary. The mortgage payments were very low by my standards at the time. They remained low because that's what the rates were. I was alone, I was single, I had a 3-bedroom house. I was clever in some ways. I rented 2 rooms out straight away. It was a student area. And I let those rooms out. I lived there, actually made good friends with some of the students and the people who came and went. That was great. And I hung on to that property. I went traveling. And I came back and I rented in London. I kept the house rented out. So I was paying for my rent in London whilst renting the house out in Swansea because I had this thing. I wanted to get that mortgage paid for, wanted to get it done and dusted so that that would be mine one day. I never quite made it, didn't quite get that far. Long distance, trying to manage a rented out property proved to be very problematic and I would not recommend it. I had people who didn't pay rent, I had people who damaged the property, I had all sorts of problems. But anyway, I hung on to it until about 2013 when I'd eventually had enough. And that year was not dissimilar to last year where everything went wrong. 2013, all sorts of things went wrong. Lost a job, problems at home, tried to rent the house out, couldn't get the rent off people, did the house up, couldn't sell it for 8 months, you name it. But anyway, the end of the day, I did sell it. I could have sold it for more, but I had to drop the price a bit. But I still made about £100,000. But even with that as a deposit, that still wasn't enough to get me into a good place in London and by today's standards. Whilst that house was rented out, I was renting my own place, or a shared place, I should say, in London. It was great. I loved it. It was in a great part of London. I loved living there. But as I say, that landlord had his own problems. He sort of turned on us and turned my world and our world upside down, just like that, overnight, on his terms. And that set the wheels in motion for me to start thinking, there's something wrong here, where your life is permanently in somebody else's hands, who can pull the plug on you, pull the rug from underneath you at any given time without your say. And you young people out there have got all this to come. If you're going to be renting all your lives, you never know what that landlord is going to do, what's going to happen, what's going to change in their life, when they're going to pull the plug. Will you feel settled? Will you feel confident that you can make changes to your house, make it as you want, do what you want, paint the walls, change the bathroom? You probably can't do any of that. So that's the life you might have to look forward to. In the late 1960s, my dad was terrified. He had a job and he was terrified of the house he was buying. He was buying a house that we lived in for 50 years. It was a 3-bedroom, brand new build bungalow off plan. And it cost around about £3,500 more, I can remember. And he was terrified that he could only just about afford the mortgage repayments. But the point of this little story is that he was a man with a wife and 2 young kids. He was buying a 3-bedroom house on his own. My mother did a little bit of work part-time, but it was just peanuts really. And he was able to buy a house by himself and bring up a family, and for them to go on the odd little UK holiday here and there. What's the chances of that today? The point of my ramblings today are this. How can we go to a stage where a young man can bring up a family in a house on his own, can afford to pay the mortgage, still have some sort of family holidays, and not in a high-paying job, mind you. He was a tradesman. He wasn't exactly loaded. He wasn't a businessman or anything. So he was an ordinary working-class man, and he could afford to do that and still bring up a half-decent family. Yeah, We went to comprehensive school and had pretty basic upbringing, but still, today, I don't think there's a hope in hell of that happening. That's not even possible, is it? Or am I dreaming? Maybe I've got it wrong. So something has drastically changed since the mid-50s, mid-60s, 70s, even when I got it in my house in the 90s, to right now, where we are, mid-2025, in the 20s, and there's not a chance. Things have... Is there a bigger picture going on here? Is there an agenda that I'm missing? Is there something else that the government or some higher body wants to happen? Do they want to keep us suppressed, keep the working classes down there, keep churning us out whilst they live on a higher plane? Because that's a little bit what it feels like. That's my suspicion. What's that saying? You will own nothing and be happy, while they will own everything and control us all. I have a sneaking suspicion that's where things are going. Well, can we do anything about it? I would like to think so. You'd like to think so, wouldn't you? You'd like to think we could vote in the right people, vote for change the system somehow. That's what we all want, I think. We want our future and young people to be able to go out and take care of themselves and look after themselves and be prosperous, build futures, have solid homes to live in, and feel like they've got some hope and light at the end of the tunnel, that they're going to get somewhere. But as long as we keep voting in these idiots and we stop putting real people in there, because politicians are meant to be politicians, you know. I'm not going to sit here and stand here and sing the praises of Donald Trump by any means. But he's a businessman from a business background, so maybe he'll have a different view on things. I don't know. He could be making some terrible mistakes. I'm far from an expert on that. But my point I'm trying to make is, why don't we get people like your Martin Lewis's in? Gary, the economics guy, people that really seem to care for the working classes and understand our problems and where we're coming from. Why can't we just vote in real people who really can make a difference to us, instead of the same old upper class politicians who have no interest or contact or any understanding of what it's like to be a struggling working class person in this country? Because they don't care. I mean, let's be honest. Can they relate to an upbringing, a typical working class upbringing, where we had to live on hand-me-downs maybe from your big brother or sister or something? Did they have to bath in second-hand bath water, maybe third-hand, like some of us will have when we were growing up? Probably not. And this is my problem with the politics and the politicians of today. They can't relate to us, I'm sure of it. Rishi Sunak seemed like a decent guy, but he's never had that stuff to worry about, has he? How does he understand what it's like living in a council estate or next to a council estate, or, you know, having to live on baked beans and basic foods? The sort of things we did. My mother stretching spaghetti and bolognese sauce using Branston pickle and all sorts, you know, everything like that. They can't relate to that stuff. So how can they relate to the working classes when they're running the country? What are the chances? I just don't get it. It just does not add up to me. That stuff doesn't make any sense. Typically, politicians have gone to public school and had really nice upbringing and are very smart and this, that and the other, but they can't possibly understand the normal life that most of us in this country have to live. I don't know how to fix that. I don't like the way it's going. I don't like the fact that young people are going to end up renting the rest of their lives. The British way used to be work hard, bring up a family, get your own house, get a property, get security, live fairly comfortably or as best you can, take a couple of holidays, and yeah, that's your life. But it's definitely getting harder. That stuff has changed. I'm really interested in your thoughts on this, your suggestions on property ownership in the UK these days, and is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? It's a subject I've always been somewhat fascinated by, because I've always loved the idea of owning my own place. Since I was young, you know, I thought that was the way to go. And I've always found it fascinating as to how and the economics of it all works. And now I'm wondering, how is it going to work in future? What's it going to be like? Is this country destined to simply have a generation of renters? Because once you get to that stage, it never goes back. That's how I see it. Because all the rich and the wealthy people that own all the properties, they're not going to sell them back down to the younger people, are they? They're going to sell them, if they do sell them, to other wealthy people, other people that can afford it, or give them to their own family, and they'll become landlords and rent them out. I don't know, I can't see an end to it. I just see a bad cycle, and all of it leads to me feeling like there's suppression for the working classes who struggle anyway, and will basically have no way out of that dip. It's not looking great, is it? And some of you may be thinking about my situation. Yeah, I still haven't got a job. I'm still unemployed. I'm still struggling. I'm eating into my savings to live and to survive. I'm trying to help myself in various different ways, YouTube being one of them. And I've got a few other little things on the go, but none of them are really bringing any income. But my situation is, yeah, I had that house. I could say I was lucky, but I was determined. I was determined to have a house. I was determined to keep it going. I worked hard and I got a bit of profit out of it. And I piled all of that profit into the deposit of a house that I had to share the mortgage with my partner in the outskirts, one of the least popular areas of London. Can you believe that? A big, big deposit, and that's all I could get with it. Is to share a mortgage, not even on my own. And I've still got a long time to go on that mortgage yet. Ugh. So although I consider myself relatively fortunate for the timing, I'm not in a spectacularly good place by any means. Not by any means. So I've got some advice for you younger people out there, starting off in life with your first jobs. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor by any means. But there are some simple rules that you could apply to your working life as you go forward from a young age, which may benefit you in the long run. And it's a simple thing. It's not difficult. And a lot of you financial experts would laugh at this because it's not exactly complicated. And that is, start putting money away early. If you're earning a meager amount, save a relevant 10% of that amount from the beginning. Start banging it away somewhere, and just make that a habit of life. Because as soon as you put 10% away of your income, it's gone. You forget about it. You put it into an account, it's done. And you learn to live on the rest. And that becomes your normal. That is your new norm. You keep doing that in every job you have, every pay increase you have, top it up, keep it going, and I promise you, that will turn over and turn over. If you start that habit from a young age, and I'm talking, for me it was late teens, but if you do it in your late teens, early 20s, whatever, make that your norm, that will accumulate and accumulate and accumulate, and you'll get compound interest on that constantly. Keep an eye on it. Move it into higher interest savings accounts if they're around. Lock it down if you need to. Once you get a decent amount, lock it away for a couple of years, high interest. Things like that. Just play the game. Don't just squander it. I did my fair share of squandering of it. I also do my fair share of saving of it. And it's really, really helped me. Having savings is a security that's great to have behind you. Because without it, you really are, left out on a limb. Get yourself a pension early on as well. Get that going if you can. Just learn to live on whatever's left and don't overspend. Don't overspend on credit cards. Don't go buying high fashion stuff that you don't need. And think about whether you need this thing or not and how important it is to benefit your life before going out spending and buying stuff, Do you really need to buy an expensive car and pay monthly out on that just to keep up with your friends or whatever it is? Think about this stuff. Is it essential? Once it's gone, it's gone. Invest wisely, Invest wisely. That's all I say. Well, I have found a cracking little walking trail here. Have a quick look. We've got the river down below, a little stream. Just walk through this scuzzy bit. Got a nice path, goes all the way down there, along around, up the valley. It's fantastic. And then back on the path here, up this little track. Look at that, beautiful. This was meant to be just a quick little video about the state of properties in the country and what's happening going forward. Are we in a mess? Are we in a terrible place? I don't think we're in a great place. And if you're starting off in life, do what you can to help yourself. Don't rely on others, because they will probably mess you up, I would say. It's down to you. Nobody else is going to help you. So on your terms, it's up to you to do your best. And then maybe one day you will end up owning a property a little bit like this monster right here, or that one. Wow, what have I just found? This is spectacular. Get it right, get yourself one of these. Imagine that. I dream of something like that. Perfectly manicured garden, nice big rock solid properties. Blimey. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? Anyway, that's a lot to work towards. So keep that in mind. Keep aiming for something. Try and get yourself there. Let's get a bit of sunlight. Keep it in mind. Have something to aim for, you know? Don't think about just paying rent to somebody else. And don't think about working for somebody else indefinitely so they can get richer. Be that person, be that one that gets there. Buy yourself some security. Think about your future, plan ahead, do your best, because it's not going to get any easier. It doesn't look like it. This country's not going the right way. Something's not right. Something's definitely not right. I don't know what it is, but things have changed a lot. Think about it. A man with a family on his own could buy a house just 30, 40 years ago. Now, not a chance. Something's different. I just want to ask you this. If you're out there, you're around my age, 50s, mid-50s, and you were talking to somebody younger than you, say in their mid-20s, what would be your advice for them? What would you say? How would you steer them in the right direction as far as a political point of view goes and the state of the country? What would be your top tips? Mine would be, when you start working, or ideally work for yourself, open a separate account, do something. Make saving an absolute habit. Make a minimum of 10%. If you start that young enough, start it early enough, that will accumulate for years and years to come. Make that your normal. Make that your go-to. You know, don't squander it. Don't buy unnecessary things. That's my little tip, my little advice. What else would you say? Have you got any other advice to pass on to younger people so they don't have such a hard time going forward and maybe give themselves a chance of getting that property, if that's the way it's going to go, if buying property is still a big deal? Because it was a big deal when I was young. That was the thing. That was the thing you were sort of encouraged to do. Get on the ladder, get on the ladder. I don't know if that's still the case even. Am I that out of touch? Anyway, what's your advice? I'd love to know. I've decided to go back the same way. It's too nice. I can't go down the road when I've got this lovely path to follow. But before I go, I've got another question. Do you think this country is in a bad place? Is it in trouble? Has something changed so drastically that we can't repair it? Is it going the wrong way? Do you have any ideas which way this country is headed? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I know typically those of us from this, whatever generation you're from my generation, we typically see things in a, like our parents used to, you know, oh, this country's not like it used to be, things have changed. And younger people will be just looking at it as their norm. You know, that's just how it is, isn't it? And we can look back at maybe better times and realize that it was a lot better back then. I don't know. Sometimes that confuses me, like as if am I just that old bloke who just thinks that it was better then, and the young people just think it's just normal and you should just accept it? Personally, I think we need to take a step back, look out at that, look in and say, no, things are not right. Or maybe, actually, it's not bad, it's going in the right direction. I don't know. What do you think of that? Something I think about quite often, about whether I'm judging things right or not. Anyway, that's my question, long and convoluted that it is. I want to end it there today. Thinking about the state of the country, thinking about the state of the economy, thinking about young people going forward and owning property. I want to know, is it going to get any better for them, or is it going to get worse? I don't think it's going to get any better. I think we're going to be a nation of renters for the next, probably from about 2040 onwards. Everybody growing up will just be renting, and that'll be the new norm. And those landlords and everybody that owns those properties will be sitting pretty, and they'll keep us down below working forever. Are we going to turn into a third world country? I don't know. Are we going to be Africa, Britain? I've no idea. Well, let's leave it there. Let me know your thoughts. I'd be really interested. I want to know what you think. I'll catch you on the next one somewhere. See you next time.